While millions of Fast and Loud fans tuned in to watch Richard Rawlings and his crew transform classic cars, one unexpected star stole scenes with her razor-sharp wit and no-nonsense attitude. But behind Sue Martin's hilarious "Why you always bring me junk" catchphrase lies a remarkable story of immigrant determination, 24-hour work marathons, and business savvy that built an empire from a $4,500 gamble. Here are 15 things you never knew about Sue Martin from Fast and Loud. Her real name honors heritage. Most Fast and Loud fans know her simply as Sue, the sharp-tongued upholstery queen who could put Richard Rawlings in his place with a single glance, but her full name tells a much deeper story about identity and heritage. Yulan Haiso Martin was born in Taiwan to a family of farmers, where traditional names carry deep cultural significance and family history. When she immigrated to the United States in 1984 with her husband and children to pursue the American dream, she made a choice that many immigrants face: whether to fully Americanize their identity or maintain connections to their cultural roots. Unlike many immigrants who choose to go by completely American names to blend in or make business easier, Sue kept her traditional Taiwanese name Yulan as part of her full identity, even as she became known professionally by the simpler nickname Sue. The name Yulan, which has beautiful meanings in Chinese culture, remained officially part of her identity throughout her rise to television fame. This decision reflects something important about her character that fans saw on screen but might not have fully understood. She never forgot where she came from, even as she built an empire in Dallas, Texas. Her choice to maintain Yulan Haiso Martin as her official name, rather than dropping the Taiwanese elements entirely, shows the same kind of determination and authenticity that made her such a compelling television personality. She didn't try to hide her heritage or completely reinvent herself for American audiences. Instead, she brought her whole self to everything she did, from building ASM auto upholstery from nothing to standing up to Richard Rawlings on national television. The farmer's daughter from Taiwan, who kept her traditional name, became one of the most memorable personalities in automotive reality television, proving that staying true to your roots can be a source of strength rather than something to leave behind. She started with 24-hour work marathons. When Sue Martin bought that failing upholstery company for $4,500, she knew she had to do something extreme to turn it around. But what she did next would shock anyone who thinks running a small business is a 9-to-5 job. Sue worked 24 hours straight for 3 to 4 days in a row, practically living at the shop and sleeping in shifts, completely committed to making every single deadline and building the reputation that would eventually make ASM Auto Upholstery the premier shop in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. This wasn't just working late or pulling an occasional all-nighter like most business owners do during busy periods. Sue was literally sleeping at her shop, grabbing rest in short shifts between jobs, and working around the clock for days at a time to prove that customers could trust her with their vehicles. She understood that in the upholstery business, reputation is everything, and missing even one deadline could destroy the trust she was desperately trying to build with new customers who didn't know if this immigrant woman with a tiny shop could deliver quality work on time. The physical and mental demands of working this way for years would break most people, but Sue saw it as the only path to success in a competitive industry where established shops had decades of customer relationships, and she was starting from absolutely nothing. She wasn't just trying to complete the work that came through her doors. She was trying to prove that ASM Auto Upholstery could be more reliable and dependable than any other shop in the area, even if it meant sacrificing her own comfort and health in the process. This extreme work ethic from her early days explains a lot about the Sue Martin that Fast and Loud fans came to know and love. Her no-nonsense attitude and insistence on quality work weren't just personality traits. They were forged during those grueling years when she literally lived and breathed her business, sleeping on site and working around the clock to build something from nothing. She bought a failing business for peanuts. In 1990, when Sue Martin was looking for a way to turn her hobby of reupholstering her husband's car into a real business, she found an opportunity that most people would have run away from. A nearly bankrupt upholstery company that was going out of business in Dallas, Texas. The owner was desperate to sell. The business had no customers left, and the entire operation was crammed into a tiny 1,000-square-foot garage that barely had room for the basic equipment needed to run an upholstery shop. Instead of seeing this as a risky investment, Sue saw it as exactly the chance she needed to get started without having to build everything from scratch. She bought the entire failing business for just $4,500, which even back in 1990 was an incredibly small amount of money to purchase any kind of established business, even one that was about to close its doors forever. To put that price in perspective, $4,500 in 1990 had the buying power of about $9,000 today, which is still barely enough to buy a decent used car, let alone an entire business with equipment and a location. The garage was so small that there was barely room to work on one car at a time, and Sue had to figure out how to organize the space efficiently enough to handle multiple projects while still leaving room for customers to drop off and pick up their vehicles. The previous owner had let the business deteriorate so badly that Sue essentially had to rebuild the customer base from zero, but the low purchase price meant she could afford to take risks and experiment with different approaches to finding clients. This $4,500 gamble became the foundation of ASM Auto Upholstery, which eventually grew into the premier upholstery company in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and made Sue famous on national television. The fact that she was willing to bet everything on a failing business shows the same kind of bold decision-making that made her such a compelling personality on Fast and Loud. She learned from her first employee. When Sue Martin bought that failing upholstery business and found herself the owner of a shop she barely knew how to run, she made a decision that reveals something remarkable about her character. Instead of pretending she knew everything or hiring someone to work under her, she chose to learn the craft by working side by side with her first employee, Adán de la Rosa, who became both her teacher and her partner in building the business from the ground up. Most new business owners, especially those who have just purchased a company, feel pressure to act like they're the expert and the boss from day one, but Sue took a completely different approach that showed incredible humility and wisdom. She recognized that Adán de la Rosa had skills and knowledge that she needed to learn, so she positioned herself as his student, rather than trying to maintain some artificial hierarchy where she pretended to know more than she actually did about the technical aspects of auto upholstery work. This arrangement meant that Sue spent her days working directly alongside Adán, learning every technique, every trick of the trade, and every detail about how to handle different types of materials and vehicle interiors. She wasn't sitting in an office managing the business from a distance. She was on the shop floor with her hands dirty, absorbing everything Adán could teach her about the craft that would eventually make her famous on national television. The fact that Adán de la Rosa has since passed away makes this relationship even more significant because it shows how much Sue valued the knowledge and friendship he shared with her during those crucial early years. In interviews, Sue has spoken respectfully about how much she learned from him, giving him credit for helping her master the skills that eventually built ASM Auto Upholstery into the powerhouse it became. This humble approach to learning from her employee, rather than trying to boss him around, set the foundation for everything Sue accomplished in the upholstery business and explains why she always maintained such respect for skilled craftsmanship throughout her career. Richard found her by pure location luck. The entire relationship between Sue Martin and Gas Monkey Garage that made her a television star happened purely by accident of geography because Richard Rawlings literally stumbled across ASM Auto Upholstery simply because his shop was located down the street from Sue's business in Dallas, Texas. Richard wasn't searching for the perfect upholsterer by calling around to different shops or getting recommendations from other car restoration experts. He just happened to be in the neighborhood and noticed the quality of work coming out of Sue's garage, which led him to walk in and see if they could handle his projects. This means that if Richard had chosen to set up Gas Monkey Garage in any other part of Dallas, or if Sue had purchased her failing upholstery business in a different location, the two of them might never have crossed paths at all. The discovery was so casual and accidental that it shows how much of television history can depend on pure chance rather than careful planning or industry connections. Richard has explained that he simply came by ASM Auto Upholstery, saw their quality work, and decided to use them for his restoration projects, which was the beginning of a business relationship that would eventually put Sue in front of millions of Fast and Loud viewers. The proximity of their businesses meant that Richard could easily drop off cars for interior work and check on progress without making a special trip across town, which made ASM Auto Upholstery a convenient choice even before Richard knew how talented Sue was at her craft. The fact that the shop was literally within walking distance or a very short drive from Gas Monkey Garage meant that Sue became part of Richard's regular routine for handling restoration projects, rather than being someone he had to go out of his way to work with. This geographic coincidence shaped the entire trajectory of Sue's career and introduced her personality to automotive enthusiasts around the world, all because two small businesses happened to be located on the same street in Dallas. And one business owner was curious enough to walk down the block and see what his neighbor was doing. She had 11 years with Richard. Before television, long before Sue Martin became a television personality known for calling Richard Rawlings an ass monkey on national television, she had already been doing business with him and Gas Monkey Garage since 2001, which means their professional relationship had been solid for 11 full years before Fast and Loud ever aired its first episode in 2012. This timeline reveals something important that many fans don't realize. Sue wasn't discovered by television producers or brought in specifically for the show. She was Richard's go-to upholstery expert long before cameras ever showed up at either of their shops. During those 11 years of working together before the show started, Sue and Richard developed the kind of professional relationship and personal chemistry that made their on-screen interactions so entertaining because they already knew each other's working styles, personalities, and sense of humor. The playful insults and back-and-forth banter that Fast and Loud viewers loved wasn't scripted television drama. It was the natural result of more than a decade of working together on car restoration projects, where they had plenty of time to develop their unique dynamic. This long history also explains why Richard trusted Sue with some of his most important and expensive restoration projects on the show, and why Sue felt comfortable enough to speak her mind and push back when she thought Richard was being unreasonable about deadlines or pricing. Their relationship had been tested through years of real business dealings, tight deadlines, and the normal challenges that come with any long-term professional partnership. So by the time cameras started rolling, they both knew exactly what to expect from each other. The fact that Sue had been successfully handling Richard's upholstery work for over a decade before Fast and Loud began also demonstrates that her skills and reputation were built on real expertise rather than television fame, and that Richard's decision to feature her on the show was based on genuine respect for her abilities, rather than just looking for an interesting personality to add drama to the episodes. She called it Ass Monkey Garage. While most people who worked with Richard Rawlings treated him with the kind of respect you'd show to a successful business owner and television star, Sue Martin took a completely different approach that shocked and delighted Fast and Loud viewers by openly making fun of his shop's name and regularly calling Gas Monkey Garage by her own version. Ass Monkey Garage. This wasn't just a one-time joke or something that slipped out accidentally. Sue made it a running gag throughout her appearances on the show, demonstrating that she had absolutely no fear of offending the boss or worrying about the consequences of making fun of his brand on national television. The fact that Sue felt comfortable enough to repeatedly mock the Gas Monkey Garage name shows just how confident she was in her own skills and position, because most contractors or business partners would never risk insulting their biggest client's company name, especially not on a television show that millions of people were watching. Sue's willingness to call it Ass Monkey Garage right to Richard's face, and sometimes even when he wasn't around, showed viewers that she saw herself as Richard's equal, rather than someone who worked for him or depended on his approval. This bold attitude resonated with Fast and Loud fans, who were used to seeing everyone else treat Richard with deference and respect. So Sue's irreverent approach to dealing with him made her an instant favorite among viewers who enjoyed watching someone put the Gas Monkey boss in his place. Her Ass Monkey Garage jokes became one of the most memorable running gags on the show, and fans would tune in partly to see what Sue would say next about Richard and his operation. The nickname also perfectly captured Sue's no-nonsense personality and her belief that good work should speak for itself, regardless of fancy branding or television fame. By calling it Ass Monkey Garage, she was essentially saying that all the marketing and show business didn't impress her. What mattered was whether Richard brought her quality projects and treated her with the respect her craftsmanship deserved. She's married since 1967. Behind Sue Martin's tough television persona and her ability to stand up to Richard Rawlings was a remarkably stable personal life built around a marriage that has lasted longer than many Fast and Loud fans have been alive. Sue has been married to a man named Hewlin since January 9, 1967, which means that by the time she became famous on television in 2012, they had already been together for 45 years and were well on their way to celebrating their golden wedding anniversary. This incredibly long marriage is especially remarkable when you consider all the challenges that Sue and Hewlin faced together, including immigrating to the United States from Taiwan in 1984 with their children, starting a business from scratch in a foreign country, and dealing with the pressures of building ASM auto upholstery while Sue was working those brutal 24-hour marathons in the early days. Most marriages struggle to survive the stress of starting a new business, let alone doing it while adapting to a completely different culture and language, but Sue and Hewlin managed to keep their relationship strong through all of these major life changes. During Sue's years on Fast and Loud, when she was traveling for filming and dealing with the demands of television production on top of running her upholstery business, she and Hewlin were celebrating over 50 years of marriage, which provided a stable foundation that allowed her to take risks and speak her mind on camera without worrying about the impact on her personal life. The fact that their marriage survived Sue's rise to television fame, with all the additional pressures and public attention that came with being on a popular Discovery Channel show, speaks to the strength of their relationship and Hewlin's support for Sue's career. Their marriage also produced a son named Richard, and eventually led to grandchildren, including granddaughters named Amber and Emily, and a grandson named Nathan, showing that Sue's success in business and television was built on a foundation of family stability that lasted for decades. Her grandson attends military academy. While Sue Martin was known for her tough attitude and no-nonsense approach on Fast and Loud, her pride in her family reveals another side of her character, especially when it comes to her grandson Nathan Dempsey, who achieved the prestigious position of Commander of Bravo Company at Missouri Military Academy during his senior year. Sue has publicly shared her excitement about Nathan's leadership role, posting on social media about how proud she is to see him leading other cadets at one of the most respected military preparatory schools in the country. Missouri Military Academy is not just any private school. It's a highly selective, all-male boarding school that has been training young men in leadership and discipline since 1889, and it holds the distinction of being a U.S. Army Junior Reserve Officers Training Corps honor unit with distinction. This means that Nathan didn't just attend a military school. He excelled enough to earn a command position at an institution that has the privilege of nominating cadets to the U.S. Military Academy, Naval Academy, Air Force Academy, and Coast Guard Academy. The fact that Nathan rose to the position of company commander shows that he inherited some of the same leadership qualities and work ethic that made his grandmother successful in business and television, because military academy command positions are earned through demonstrated leadership ability, academic performance, and the respect of both instructors and fellow cadets. Being chosen to lead Bravo Company means that Nathan was recognized by the Academy's leadership as someone who could handle the responsibility of managing and mentoring other students while maintaining his own high standards. Sue's pride in Nathan's achievements at Missouri Military Academy also reflects the family's values around discipline, hard work, and taking on leadership responsibilities, which are the same qualities that helped Sue build her upholstery business from nothing and stand her ground with Richard Rawlings on national television. The connection between Sue's success and Nathan's military leadership shows that the Martin family has consistently valued excellence and personal responsibility across generations. She built an 8,800 square foot empire. The transformation of Sue Martin's business from that cramped 1,000 square foot garage she bought for $4,500 into a massive 8,800 square foot complex represents one of the most dramatic business expansions in the automotive industry. And it happened in just 3 years through a combination of smart planning, reinvested profits, and Sue's relentless work ethic. This wasn't a gradual expansion over decades. Sue went from barely having room for one car project to owning an entire complex that could handle multiple restoration jobs simultaneously, while still having space for equipment, storage, and customer service areas. The growth happened in stages that show how Sue carefully managed her expansion rather than taking reckless risks with borrowed money. First, she rented an additional 1,000 square feet next door to her original garage when customer demand started exceeding her capacity, which doubled her working space without requiring a huge financial commitment. Then, as the business continued to grow, she moved across the street to lease a 2,000 square foot building that included a parking lot, giving her customers a proper place to drop off and pick up their vehicles instead of trying to manage everything in a cramped garage setting. The final step came just 3 years after she started, when Sue made the bold decision to purchase the entire 8,800 square foot complex where ASM Auto Upholstery operates today. This meant she went from being a tenant who rented small spaces to being the owner of a property that was nearly 9 times larger than her original garage, giving her the freedom to organize the workflow exactly how she wanted it and the security of knowing she would never have to worry about rent increases or lease renewals affecting her business operations. This expansion also positioned ASM Auto Upholstery to handle the kind of large-scale restoration projects that would eventually make Sue famous on Fast and Loud, because the bigger facility meant she could take on multiple complex jobs at the same time without having to turn away customers or compromise on quality due to space limitations. She started with her husband's car. The entire ASM Auto Upholstery empire that would eventually make Sue Martin famous on Fast and Loud began with a simple family project in 1990, when Sue and her friend decided to reupholster her husband Hewlin's 1968 Gran Torino in their garage, turning what could have been an expensive trip to a professional shop into a learning experience that changed the direction of Sue's entire life. This wasn't a business decision or a calculated move into the automotive industry. It was just a practical solution to fix up a family car that needed interior work, but it opened Sue's eyes to both her natural talent for upholstery and the potential to turn that skill into a career. The Gran Torino project was significant because it gave Sue her first hands-on experience with automotive upholstery. Working with the specific challenges of car interiors, like curved surfaces, tight spaces, and the need to match original patterns and materials as closely as possible. Unlike furniture upholstery, which involves mostly flat surfaces and standard shapes, automotive work requires understanding how materials behave when stretched around complex curves and how to create durable seams that can withstand years of use in a vehicle environment. Working on her husband's car also meant that Sue had unlimited time to experiment and learn without the pressure of deadlines or customer expectations. Because if she made a mistake or needed to redo something, it was just a family project rather than a paying job that could damage her reputation. This safe learning environment allowed her to develop her techniques and build confidence before she ever had to work on a stranger's vehicle, which proved invaluable when she later started taking on paying customers. The success of the Gran Torino project convinced Sue that she had found something she was both good at and enjoyed doing, which led directly to her decision to look for opportunities in the upholstery business and eventually to purchase that failing company for $4,500. Without that initial family project, Sue might never have discovered her talent for automotive upholstery or built the business that would make her a television personality. She survived a frivolous lawsuit. During the early years of building ASM Auto Upholstery, Sue Martin faced one of the most stressful challenges that any small business owner can encounter when she was sued by a customer who, as it turned out, made his living by targeting small businesses with frivolous lawsuits and threatening legal action to try to get money for work that was actually completed properly. This wasn't a case of genuine dissatisfaction with Sue's upholstery work or a legitimate dispute over pricing or deadlines. It was a calculated attempt by someone who had identified Sue's growing business as a potential target for what amounts to legal extortion. The experience of being sued was incredibly stressful for Sue, especially because she was still working to establish ASM Auto Upholstery's reputation and couldn't afford to have her business name dragged through a legal battle, even if she knew she had done nothing wrong. Fighting a lawsuit requires time, money, and emotional energy that small business owners usually can't spare, which is exactly why people who file frivolous lawsuits often succeed in getting settlements from businesses that would rather pay than fight, even when they know the claims against them are false. Sue decided to fight the lawsuit rather than settle, which meant dealing with court appearances, legal fees, and the constant stress of having her business and reputation under attack while she was trying to focus on serving legitimate customers and growing her company. The case eventually went to court, where Sue won decisively, proving that the claims against her were without merit and that her work had met all the standards any reasonable customer could expect. The most shocking revelation came after the court case was over, when Sue and her legal team discovered that the man who sued her was actually on a do not sue list maintained by the district and county court systems, meaning that local courts had identified him as a serial litigant who repeatedly filed frivolous lawsuits against small businesses as a way to make money through legal intimidation rather than legitimate work. She never changed, despite global fame. Unlike many people who become television personalities and let fame go to their heads or dramatically change their business practices to capitalize on their celebrity status, Sue Martin kept ASM Auto Upholstery operating exactly the same way after Fast and Loud made her famous, as she had been running it for years before the cameras ever showed up. The reason Sue could maintain this stability was that her business was already successful and fully booked before the television show began, with established accounts at many car dealerships throughout the Dallas-Fort Worth area that provided a steady stream of work, regardless of whether she was on television or not. This solid foundation of regular commercial customers meant that Sue didn't need to rely on the attention from Fast and Loud to keep her business profitable, and she didn't have to worry about what would happen if the show ended or if her television appearances stopped bringing in new customers. Many businesses that get featured on reality shows become dependent on that exposure and struggle when the cameras move on to other subjects. But Sue's dealership accounts and established reputation in the automotive industry protected her from that kind of vulnerability. The main change that came from her Fast and Loud appearances wasn't in the business side of ASM Auto Upholstery, but in the fact that Sue suddenly had fans from all over the world who knew her name and appreciated her no-nonsense attitude toward Richard Rawlings and her obvious skill at automotive upholstery work. These international fans didn't necessarily become customers because most of them lived too far away to use her services, but they did give Sue a level of recognition and respect that extended far beyond the Dallas automotive community where she had built her reputation. Sue's ability to stay grounded and keep her business focused on quality work, rather than trying to leverage her television fame into other ventures, shows the same practical mindset that made her successful in the first place, and it explains why ASM Auto Upholstery continued to thrive even after she stopped appearing regularly on Fast and Loud in the later seasons of the show. She disappeared from later seasons mysteriously. After being a regular and beloved presence on Fast and Loud for several seasons, Sue Martin suddenly vanished from the show during its later years, and the mystery surrounding her disappearance became one of the most talked about behind-the-scenes stories among fans, who noticed that their favorite upholstery expert was no longer appearing in episodes where Richard Rawlings needed interior work done on his restoration projects. What made this disappearance even more puzzling was that neither Sue nor Richard ever publicly explained what happened, or why their long-standing business relationship that had been featured prominently on television suddenly came to an end. The silence from both parties led to widespread speculation among Fast and Loud viewers and automotive enthusiasts who had grown accustomed to Sue's memorable appearances and her willingness to call Richard an ass monkey when he brought her challenging projects or tried to negotiate on pricing. Some fans theorized that Sue and Richard had a falling out over money, possibly because Sue's television fame allowed her to charge higher prices that Richard wasn't willing to pay, while others suggested that Richard might have found other upholsterers who offered better deals or faster turnaround times for the show's production schedule. Another theory that gained traction among fans was that Sue simply decided she didn't want to deal with the demands of television production anymore, especially since her business was already successful without the show, and the filming process could be disruptive to her regular operations and existing customers. Some Reddit users and automotive forums suggested that the quality of Sue's work wasn't as exceptional as the show portrayed, and that Richard had moved on to better upholsterers, though this theory was disputed by others who pointed to ASM Auto Upholstery's continued success and reputation in the Dallas area. The fact that both Sue and Richard maintained their silence about the end of their television partnership, despite their previously public and entertaining relationship, only added to the intrigue and left fans to wonder what really happened behind the scenes to end one of Fast and Loud's most popular recurring storylines. She has same-day turnaround times. One of the most impressive aspects of ASM Auto Upholstery that most people don't realize is that Sue Martin has perfected a same-day service system that allows customers to drop their vehicles off between 8 and 9 in the Tonnevis, the morning, and pick them up completely, finished between 4 and 6 in the evening, which is an almost unheard-of turnaround time in the automotive upholstery industry, where most shops require days or even weeks to complete interior work. This lightning-fast service isn't just a marketing gimmick or something Sue offers for simple jobs. It's become the standard operating procedure at ASM Auto Upholstery for a wide range of upholstery projects, from basic seat repairs to complete interior overhauls. Most upholstery shops tell customers to expect their vehicles to be ready in 3 to 5 business days at minimum, and complex restoration projects can take weeks or even months, depending on the availability of materials and the shop's workload, which makes Sue's same-day promise almost impossible to believe until you understand how she has organized her operation to maximize efficiency. The key to ASM's rapid turnaround is Sue's ability to coordinate multiple skilled workers on a single project, combined with her years of experience in estimating exactly how long different types of work will take, and her willingness to put extra staff on urgent jobs to meet the promised deadline. This same-day capability explains a lot about why Richard Rawlings relied so heavily on Sue for fast and loud projects, because television production operates on tight schedules, where delays can cost thousands of dollars per day in crew wages, equipment rental, and other production expenses. When Richard needed interior work done for a car that was supposed to be featured in an upcoming episode, he couldn't afford to wait weeks for the upholstery to be completed. So Sue's promise to have vehicles ready by the end of the same day made her an invaluable partner for the show's demanding production timeline, even when her pricing might have been higher than other shops that couldn't match her speed.